Hi guys, Johnny Wilson here. I'm having to do a voiceover of this because I filmed this class and unfortunately I didn't plug the microphone in, so there you go. So this is my ultimate hip mobility class for ages 40 plus. It's 30 minutes long and we've got 25 exercises, and I'm just about to go into the first exercise here. We're doing about 50 seconds per exercise, but during the video here I kind of was a little bit frantic, so we use some of the rest time to do it as well. So the first exercise that I'm going to do here, right, are called dynamic 1990s. Well, I call them dynamic 1990s anyway. You might also call them windscreen wipers. And what we're trying to do here is just get the legs a little bit further, wider than hip width. And you can see what I'm doing here at the moment. I'm using my hands to give me a little bit of support. Then if you feel like you've got the ability, what you can do then is take your hands off the floor and then see if you can kind of get into this hip internal rotation, external rotation dynamically while keeping your hands off the floor. So that's quite a challenging one there. If you're struggling with that, just pop your hands back on the ground and you'll be fine with that. So this is our opening exercise, hip openers, really good exercise to kind of get into that internal external rotation. The idea there was to try and get the inside of your knee to the ground. Second exercise here, you can see I'm doing a short adductor stretch. Okay, so what I'm doing is putting the soles of my feet together, then I'm grabbing my toes just like that, and what we're doing here is just a little bit of a rock and roll. Now I'll do this for a little bit, okay, and you can see there's a bit of a difference in mobility on one side in comparison to the other, so I've got a little bit more on the left side in comparison to the right. That'll be the same for most people, so I've got to work a little bit more on the right, and also I'm suffering with a little bit of right-sided groin pain at the moment, so that kind of tees in with that. Now what I'm going to do is a little MET, muscle energy technique, so I'll rest my elbows on the insides of my knees, and then I'll push into my elbows for a count of 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, and then I'll let that go, and then I'll go back into the rock again. Okay, so we're using a muscle energy technique here to try and reduce the excitability of what's called Golgi tendon organs and muscle spindles, and they're the ones that are kind of responsible for the stretch response. So when you kind of activate them, they become less frantic and they're more willing to do the stretch with you from there. Okay, so from here then I'm going to do a bit of a glute stretch. What I'm going to eventually do is drop one leg out like that, and then I'm going to try and get the other leg, the outside of my ankle to the outside of my knee. I'm going to get a nice glute stretch here, as long as I can get hug that knee into my chest there like that. So from there then what I'm going to do is I'm really looking at trying to get that good glute stretch there, hugging that in. And obviously for doing it on this side, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, so we'll be doing it on the other side then as well, and you should just be feeling that. Now people will feel the stretch in different places as well, so that's one of the things. So again, I now have feet wide apart, soles of the feet on the floor. I'm going to drop one side out like that, and then I'm going to bring that leg across and over, and then I can get that nice stretch on here again. Like I say now guys, apologies for the voiceover here. I don't normally do a voiceover like this because it's difficult to kind of follow it and so on and so forth, because I know what I'm doing at the moment, in the moment, and then you're kind of trying to second guess what you've already done as well, which is another one. So we've done the right side and the left side, and then I'm going to do clams. So I'm showing you some bands here that you can use. I've got some glute bands, but you can also get some of those resistance bands, tie them up into a knot, and then you can make them into a glute band. So pop that then around your legs, above your knees, okay, and then lie on one side. Keep your heels together, right? And then you're going to bring that leg out and you're going to hold it up there for a count of 6 seconds. So you're going to really kind of activate the glutes and get the glutes going, get them on there, so they're working there like that. Now we do about 4 reps on one side, and then we will do 4 reps on the other side. And you should feel the glute kind of burning at this stage, so these are your hip rotator muscles. And you want to just try and keep that heel together. Now obviously if we've done one side, then we're going to just go over onto the other side. You can see there now I've got my knees bent, I've got my hips flexed, I've got my ankles close together, I've got the band above my knees, and then I'm getting that glute activation work going on there. So a bit of a strength exercise, bit of an activation exercise. Again, we're going after those Golgi tendon organs and muscle spindles. We just wanted to kind of get ready to play ball with us really in terms of mobility and flexibility. When we talk about mobility, we talk about joints, we talk about flexibility, we talk about the muscles. So following this, then I'm going to get myself into what's called a tensor fasciae lata stretch. So, you know, any runners, anybody who's suffering from ITB band or lateral knee issues or hip issues, then this is a good one. So again, I'm lying flat on my back now, outside of my ankle to the outside of my knee, and I'm bringing my knee across my body, and I'm feeling that stretch. Apologies for the belly shot there as well. That's nice, isn't it? Then I bring it back up, and then I'll bring it back down onto that same side again. And then you'll feel that kind of like intense stretch up around the hip area there. And then the idea is like to try and get the knee a little bit further to the ground each time. Really good stretch. I love it because I definitely feel like, you know, the hip opening out there anyway, for sure. Again, doing the same on the opposite side here, outside of the ankle, outside of the knee. Get that good stretch on there. I think I was feeling it more on the left side today now than I was on the right side. So look, you might be the same. You might have areas where you've got tightness and so on and so forth. So it's normal to feel one side is tighter than the other, and that can be for various exercises. And so it might just be an idea that you start working on this kind of stuff as well. So when we've done that exercise, now we're going to go into what I call a sideline quad stretch, okay? So I'm going to get into the fetal position here, just resting on my elbow there like that. I'm going to grab my ankle with my hand, the uppermost one, and then I'm going to slingshot it backwards like that. Now the idea here is I'm going to try and get that back knee to the floor, and I'm going to try and have as much of a gap between my ankle and the opposite knee. Okay, so now I'm going to feel that stretch down my hip flexors there. And I'm holding this position. Now again, you could always press stop on the video and hold it for a little bit longer if you think that's an important stretch for you. Some of these exercises will be really salient for you, some might not so be. Do you know what I mean? You might feel like you're very good at them, etc., etc. But I'm in this position here, and again, this is like the antithesis, if I can't say that word, you know what I mean? It's the opposite. It's the opposite to what you would be doing in sitting, like, you know, because you're opening up your hip flexors. And sure, what do we do in this world? So we're always sitting down. We're sitting down when we're driving somewhere, when we're eating, when we're talking to somebody on the phone, when we're watching television, you know, etc., etc. So opening out those hip flexors is a really good idea, especially if you've got hip pain or low back pain or knee pain. You know, great exercise to do there. And we don't spend enough time in this position. Again, I'm trying to get as much gap between my ankle and my quad there like that. So the next exercise I'm going to go into, some people call them psoas marches if you go on the internet and so on and so forth. But in essence, I've got the band around my feet there. I've got my hips to 90 degrees, and then I'm going to stretch one leg out as far as I can. And it's the leg that's maintained in flexion. That's the leg now that's going to be working very hard. Okay, so you're trying to straighten out the other leg, and then you're trying to keep the leg flexed, and you'll feel your hip flexors burning and working hard. So really important, because look, they get shortened when we're sitting down, and they also get weaker. So that's not a great combination, really. So these are these psoas marches. You know, slight hold at the end of each of the exercises, and then try to straighten out the leg as much as you possibly can do. Away with the band, and what we'll do now is we'll be going on to what's called hip hurdles, because you end up looking like a hurdler. Okay, so I get a small object. I'm using a kettlebell here. You can use whatever you want, doesn't matter what you want. I'm in long sitting. I'm going to try and keep my hands off the floor if I can. If you need to put your hands on the floor for assistance, do that. I bring my leg over the kettlebell, and then I try and get it back into that hurdler position. Okay, and then you're trying to manage your balance. Now, there's a lot of strength involved in this exercise. There's a lot of core involved in this exercise. Look, I'm not very good at it. I'm not saying I'm very good at it. Do you know what I mean? Something that I need to work on. I work on it 3 times a week. If you looked at me doing this 2 years ago, you know, like there was no way I could keep the front leg straight. So you might have a bit of a problem keeping that front leg straight, and that's fine as well. It's not about where you start, it's about where you finish. And look, the idea here is not to give up. The idea is to find the stuff that's challenging and tough, and then to go after that, isn't it? Now, you can see on this side, that's just absolutely pathetic, isn't it? You know what I mean? So I'm really struggling to get any type of hip extension going on there. So maybe it was a good idea actually to go and do this as a voiceover, because I'm getting to critique my own form here, and that's certainly something I need to work on, isn't it? Holy God, tonight. Next exercise, love it. Straight leg raising. Really important, stable exercise in my program. I do 3 times a week. You're in long sitting, your hands are off the floor, you're having to maintain good core strength. You can put your hands above your head if you want as well. The idea, or put your hands on the floor if you need that assistance. The idea is that we're just doing a small pulse there. Try not to put your heel on the floor and bring your toes to your nose, and you're working hard. Now, in this one, we're working for about 50 seconds, all right? Now, if you want to make it a little bit harder, you could always put an ankle weight around your ankle there, and that's going to turn you into a machine. Now, I do find that this is a very, very good exercise and worth progressing and worth staying at as well in terms of a bit of consistency. So keep going now, guys. Keep working hard at that. And look, you're watching this on replay now, right? So you can pause the video and take a little bit more breaks if you need to. But the idea here is that we're really trying to stimulate those hip flexors and straight leg raising. Now, straight leg raising plays a big role in walking. Do you know what I mean? So, and we take that for granted, but you lose locomotion walking, or you start with a limp, and let me tell you, you won't be taking that for granted anymore. So, always important to work your inner range quads or your VMO, and this is a great exercise for that. Now, again, so if I'm going to do it on the right, you've got to do it on the left, etc., etc. Again, we can go through all the mechanics. Look, big shout out to everybody who is already part of the group every Wednesday. For the last 5.5 years, we've had an online fitness class. There's a huge amount to be said about that, like in terms of consistency and turning up and reliability and, being there for your buddies. So look, I want to say a huge thanks to Brenda and Leslie and Louisa and Ruth and Sue and Paula and everyone now, and Jane and the other Jane and of course I'm missing names here now, so I shouldn't be naming any names. But look, your support, guys, is just absolutely, truly awesome, and I probably don't say it enough, so thank you so much. Without you guys, I probably wouldn't be doing all this. Now, I've got a little bit of mat here that I use in the gym. You could probably use 2 cushions at home if you want. I do this in the middle of the gym floor, and I do get an awful amount of looks over this one. But what I'm trying to do here, I'm in 4-point kneeling at the moment. I'm spreading my knees as wide as I possibly can do, and then I am pushing my bum back towards my heels. So I'm going to get this deep stretch right into my groin there, and then I'm just doing a little bit of pulsing on that. Brilliant exercise. Do you know what I mean? I love doing it. Again, it's part of my program. Because around that lumbo-pelvic hip region, right, we lose disassociation. And what I mean by that is we lose the ability to use the hip without having to make any compensations at the pelvis or the spine, because we lose flexibility and mobility. So this is a really important matrix or complex of exercises that you would want to be doing regularly enough. I've been trying, I suppose I've been really kind of working hard on my mobility for the last couple of years now. I've seen bits and bobs of changes. Have I seen massive changes? No, and I don't want to make any outrageous claims either. Not that type of guy. Next exercise is what I call dynamic Spider-Man's. Challenging exercise, definitely challenging exercise. So you got to have a little bit of strength, bit of core work as well here. I'm in the top of the plank position. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring one leg up as far as I possibly can do. So I'm going to split the pelvis. I'm going to do a little bit of kind of dynamic lunging into that position. I'm going to feel a stretch on the back of the quad there. And then what I'm going to do in a little moment is I'm going to do a little bit of rotation, okay? So I'm going to do a bit of thoracic rotation and really open up that groin region there. So you do about 3 or 4 of these thoracic rotations. Again, I'm only going to do 1 set on this video. You can do as many sets as you possibly want. Just press pause and away you go. Again, you might have a little bit more mobility on one side in comparison to the other, and that's fine. That's just how we all go as well. That's grand. I think on this side now, I had Gaelic football last night, so I'm struggling a little bit on my right side, my right groin, from kicking too much football last night. So wasn't the same on that side as was the other side. So next one there kind of comes, next exercise we're going to do with bird dogs, I think they call them on the internet. It kind of comes off the point that I made a while ago about the lumbopelvic hip disassociation. So being able to manage your core without moving it, and then being able to perturbate. So perturbate means move at the peripheries. So what I'm trying to do here is have triple flexion to extension. So that's flexion at the hip, knee and ankle, flexion at the shoulder and elbow as well here, and maintaining good strong core. So I'm in 2-point kneeling at the moment. So I've gone from 4-point kneeling to 2-point kneeling, and I'm lightly sucking my belly button into my spine. So I'm good core control, and I don't want any movement in the pelvis, and I don't want any movement to the spine. So I'm just looking for movement of the arm and the leg here. That's the important point. So we want good spinal stability, and then we want the perturbation from the muscles that are supposed to perturbate. So we're just getting in that control here. Really good exercise if you've got hip issues or back issues, etc., etc. The next exercise that we're going to do, right, it's going to be what's called, some people call it the couch stretch, okay? I don't care what you call it anyway. So we'll be moving on from there to the couch stretch. So now I've just got a box there beside the wall. I could have had the wall, but I painted the walls not so long ago, so there's no way I'm putting my foot on the wall. I can tell you that right now. So I brought a box in there, and I've got a cushion to kneel on. And then I'm going to get myself sideways on to the wall, right, or wherever I'm going to put my leg there, because that way I can get my knee closer to the wall. Pop the leg up behind the back there, the other leg goes out in front there, and then I go into this split stance position, okay? And what I'm going to do is hold that position for 5 seconds. I can hold on to the box if I need to. And now I'm going to kind of lean forward a touch. I'm going to feel it stretch a bit more through my hip flexors. I'm going to hold that for 5 seconds. Then I'm going to squeeze the glute on that side, right? And that's going to get even more of a hip stretch. And then I'm going to bring my hand up into the air, get more of a stretch, and then I'm going to lean back for a count of 5 as well, okay? Now, I've done it a little bit quick on that side, okay? I think I was running out of a little bit of time, so maybe you want to press a bit of pause there. Now, on this side, I definitely have enough time, right, on this side. So I've definitely gone through the routine in a more timely manner, let's say. So again, get into that position there. Jeez, I look like I'm 250 trying to get into that position, don't I? Just holding that position for a count to 5 there, and then when we've done the 5, then you're going to see me lean forward a bit. So I'm going to reduce the knee angle, okay, and I'm going to get more of a stretch on the front of my quad, on my hip flexors there. I've got my hand on the side of my hip, and the other hand is supported on my quad there. And then from what I'm going to do from there then is I'm going to squeeze the glute for 5 seconds, so that back glute gets squeezed for 5 seconds. Then I'm going to raise my hand for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then you're going to see me eventually, I'm going to start putting my hand behind my head, and I'm going to lean back. And I'll tell you what now, I'm on a right good stretch now at this stage. I'll tell you that now, right? So I'm definitely feeling it at this stage. I normally do this now 3 times a week, 1 minute each side. Go through that routine. I think it's a very important exercise. Next exercise, I call it the hamstring matrix exercise. Again, I've got my blue pad, take that with me everywhere. I'm in split stance position here. And I'm going, I've gone into the QL stretch, apologies. Now, I got this wrong at the start. I should have gone to the other side, right? Okay, so I should have reached down to the other side for this one, okay? Now, on this side, like, I'm really struggling to get down, right? So it is embarrassing, really, like, you know. Now, this is lateral flexion, and you're kind of targeting your rotator cuff muscles around your hip. You're also targeting your QL, which is quadratus and lumborum, your external and internal obliques. And on my left side, like, I really struggle with this one, do you know what I mean? So I'm trying to touch my hand onto the ground without bending forwards. I just want that lateral flexion, okay? Really good exercise, again, if you're struggling with any kind of hip issues or mobility issues. And I certainly have to do a lot more work on my left side in comparison to my right side. So when we go on to the right side now, in a moment, it's a lot more manageable for me than it was on the other side. I probably don't do enough of this, you know. I probably need to bring this back into my mobility routine a little bit more. Again, just having that leg on the knee on the pad there, and then coming down. I might do it a little bit better now on this side. Right, he says a little bit better anyway. Not an awful lot better, but sure, tis better than nothing. And again, look, do you know, if you're doing mobility stuff and you're very good at all this stuff, you're probably doing the wrong stuff. In terms of, like, you probably don't need to be doing so much mobility stuff. Maybe you'd be better off doing a bit of strength work. Maybe you'd be better off doing a bit of cardio work. Maybe you'd be better off doing a bit of housework. Do you know what I mean? Or maybe you'd be better off writing a letter that you haven't written for ages. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that you want to work at the stuff that you're not so good at. Do you know what I mean? Rather than have the ostrich approach where you put your head in the sand and you go, right, I'm not good at that, so I'm not going to do that. And do you know what? I suppose this is a YouTube video. Will be a YouTube video. It's a private video at the moment. But I suppose it's real in terms of, like, people as they grow older, they get less mobile, and it's something that we got to work on. So I'm definitely not putting a video out there where I'm showing how flexible I am. That is not what we're doing here. Now I'm getting onto the hamstring matrix one, which I said I was getting onto a while ago, but I wasn't. Now I've got a bit of a slidey disc there, and I've got my knee and my pad there that could be a cushion for you. This could be a towel or anything that's a slide out there. And what I'm doing here is I'm nailing my chest to my front quad there. You can see that. And then I've reached my hand through, and I'm then catching my opposite forearm. And I'm making sure that the back leg there is really stretched out. So I'm getting a good stretch through the quad as well as a deep stretch through my hamstring. So I'm now what I call splitting the pelvis there in that position there. Now what I do is I stretch my leg out even a bit further, and I bring my toes to my nose, and now I'm feeling the stretch even further down on my hamstring there. So it's a right good stretch there. Tough one. Again, something that I bring into my routine all the time. Even though I'm 455 years of age, I still play Gaelic football and hurling. I'm blessed to be able to do it. So, but this kind of keeps me doing the stuff that I do. Like, you know, for all of those who know me, sure, I do my mountain biking and surfing and running and triathlon and all that kind of carry on. It keeps me out of trouble. But and the only reason I say this now is because part of this mobility stuff does help me with that. So again, I've got my toes to my nose there. I'm really trying to feel the stretch on the hamstring there. I've got the pelvis split open and bring it back. Now you could press pause here now, and you could do that 1, 2, 3 more times if you wanted, okay, before going on to the next exercise. I try and do it three cycles on each side. So what we're doing here now is reverse Nordics, and what I'm saying in the video here is I'm saying, listen, don't collapse, don't flex at the hips, right? Now, I'm watching this back for the first time, so I don't know, am I going to collapse at the hips here? Not too bad so far. I'm trying to keep straight as a pencil. I'm trying to lean back. Now, when I'm leaning back, and I go as back as far as I can, I'm going to hold it for a couple of seconds. And what I'm feeling now is I'm feeling like my quads are going to rip apart, they're going to tear apart. So you're going to feel that stretch, and then you're also going to feel like it's a real strength exercise. So these are reverse Nordics. Again, something that's like really important to me. Again, I would probably do this 3 times a week. Just one set, do you know what I mean? You know, if you're getting up to 12 reps and you're holding for like 5 seconds, that's pretty, you know, that's pretty heroic, I would say. Okay guys, so now we're coming on to what I call seated pancakes. I'm using the box here. You could use anything. You can use a chair, you can use whatever you want, right? And I've got my legs as wide as I can now. I'm sat down here now, and I'm going to get my legs as wide as I can, and my toes are facing outwards as well, right? Hands are behind my back. I'm going to keep my back arched, right? I don't want to be going into any kind of, you know, flexion at the lumbar spine there. So what I'm saying there now is try and keep that back arch, and I'm trying to fold over as flat as I can. Flat as a pancake. I don't know why I call them seated pancakes, but anyway, that's the name I've given them. And as you can see here, this is absolutely terrible. This is pathetic, right? Now, I could make it a little bit harder, and I could put a weight behind my head there, like I'm just saying now, and I could like kind of really turn into a strength exercise as well. I don't think I have any need to be turning this into a strength exercise now anyway, given the range I've got there now. I think I need to work on the range again. Again, doing the voiceover, you know, look, what I thought was my curse is now my gift, because now I get a chance to go back and revise the stuff that I wasn't doing very well. Okay, so this next exercise now is a great exercise. Tough exercise, right? So we're going to be doing inch walks. And I have full body mobility and flexibility, right? So I'm reaching up into the air here. Now what I'm going to try and do now is I'm going to try and touch my toes without bending my knees, which I do reasonably okay, average, let's say, right? And then I'm going to get into a tall plank here, right? So I'm going to hold that position for 6 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Drop my hips, right? I think they call this the cobra, and look up. But I'm going to keep my elbows extended. Now my hips are kind of on the ground, but I'm still kind of working hard through here. Then I'm going to pull up through my hips, and again I'm getting back into that plank position. I could have probably pulled up a little bit more there now looking at that position. And then I walk myself back in there. Not really happy with that there now. I could probably keep my knees, or I need to work harder at keeping my knees straighter there now, to be fair, right? Again, this is a kind of a quick one, so holding it there into that position, dropping the hips, looking up, and then we're going to go back into the first position, so into the tall plank, hold that position there, tighten the belly buttons, pull into your spine, and then walk it up into that position here. Now, coming up, another banger of an exercise, a horse stance, really tough exercise. Toes faced out, feet as wide as possible, drop into a very deep, what they would call sumo squat, prisoner squat, whatever you want to call it. What I'm saying here is don't be looking at the ground now, right? Have your back muscles turned on, right? Really try and arch your back and try and keep your chest upright. Look at your horizon, okay? And then try and stay as upright as you can, but dropping down as deep as you possibly can into that squat. That's the main thing that we want to be doing here now. You're dropping down as much as you possibly can do. Now, we're going to be holding this for another, look, sure, I can't tell you now, you've got another 20-25 seconds of holding this, right? And you will feel your quads starting to burn. Now, your quads burning and being in pain are two different things now, so you've got to kind of dissociate between that. You can do a little bit of pulsing in there to get a bit more range in there, but the idea here now is you keep that chest upright, keep the back muscles working as hard as you can, and we are nearly there. Holy moly, Mary, what was that? I even felt that myself coming up out of it. Now, we're going to do what piriformis stretch. Now, I'm just going to show here that it doesn't matter what size the box is or what chair you have or what you don't have, right? All I'm saying here is we don't need excuses, right? You can do this anywhere. So I'm going to show you at a lower level. What I've done here is I've just kind of gone into as much external rotation as I possibly can, and then I'm feeding my back leg back as far as I can to get the stretch on there. Now, wherever the stretch works for you works for you, okay? What I'm noticing here now is maybe I need to work a little bit more on folding forward a little bit more as well, okay? So I'll work with it. Now, this is my good side actually for this exercise, right? So that's the worry. And what I'm going to show here is that you can do it. It doesn't matter what size your table is at home or your chair is or what color it is, it doesn't have to be green, right? That you can do it anywhere. Now you can see I'm not getting my knee down towards the box there on this side, so look, that's the way it goes. I got to work a bit more on that, that kind of way, and probably a bit too much thoracic flexion going on there as well. So lot to work on, Johnny boy, but sure, don't we all have a lot to work on? Do you know what I mean? Whether it's physically, whether it's emotionally, whether it's whatever you want to say, we all have bits and bobs that we can work on. We can all be better humans, can't we? We can all be better, that's for sure. Okay, so love the next exercise, especially if you're a runner, okay? So we're going into split stance position, and I want the back knee, what I say is to kind of kiss the floor as much as I possibly can do. Now mine is not kissing the floor there, it's up a bit too high. But you can see that I'm in a I'm in hip extension there, and what I'm trying to do is rotate back and touch that back ankle as much as I possibly can do. Again, I'm reviewing it for the first time as well, and I can see that I need to do a lot of work here in terms of opening it out. Now, it's a tough exercise as well in terms of strength. You're going to feel the quad starting to burn. And then also, look, it's a good test for yourself as well. What's your rotation and mobility like when you're in these positions? What's also your balance like? So you might be struggling with the balance here. So you might have to hold on to something or wear a helmet as well. What you don't want to be doing is falling. Because falls are catastrophic, especially in the age of over 70. If you're over 70 and have a fall, well, you know, you're going to be in a bit of bother there. So we're coming into our last exercise, and it's a static to dynamic standing long lever groin stretch. So I've just folded my arms, I'm bending over there as much as I possibly can, I'm opening up the lumbar spine, and I'm feeling a deep stretch and strength workout around the groins there, especially when you don't have your hands on the floor. And then we're going to transition this into a dynamic movement. So we're just holding that position. This is the last exercise, guys, so you've done very well now to get to here, okay? And then we're just going to reach over to one side and over to the other side again, just like that. Look, we're finishing up here. It's been a fantastic class. It's been a bit frenetic and frantic. I don't really do the voiceovers. Probably isn't great. Apologies for that. Thanks for staying with me through the end, through the whole video. And for those people who've been with me for the last 5.5 years, you know who you are. Listen, showing up every week and being that person that you can rely on, you know, it's really important. You know what I mean? So thank you for all your support. Hope you enjoyed the hip mobility video. And if you have any comments or anything like that, just, you know, shoot me a DM or anything like that. But you know how to get in touch with me anyway. If at some point this might go live on YouTube, so you can always leave a comment as well. Anyway, this is Johnny Wilson, El Capitan, your leader. You know it. Signing out.